They were tremendous in the red zone for some bizarre reason. Like it was their best red zone season in forever. So when they got down there, they were extremely effective. Um, can they make that more consistent throughout the entire approach? That to me is the goal. But look, what I'm talking about is they're not going to be an explosive offense. Um, you know, and sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing because some of the more explosive offenses take a lot of chances. They're trying to push the football down the field. That creates windows for the defense. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think you've already seen the best of the Eagles offense. Um, and they've been dominant with that style of offense. They've never been explosive from an offensive perspective.
Well, that's my concern now because of the new system and the new system not matching up with the talent specific to the quarterback. And now wondering if that concern or that Achilles heel becomes even more magnified where the offense is on any given Sunday, pardon the pun, not effective or efficient at all and struggle badly to move the sticks and struggle badly to have big plays and struggle badly to control the clock and, end up putting the defense into a position where I'm not saying they're going to be gassed in the fourth quarter, but the defense is going to be on the field for more plays than the offense is going to be on the field, based on the potential inefficiency of the offense. It's all speculation. I get it, but that's what I'm based on everything that we've talked about, based on just everything that is being said and the perception of what this offense is going to be compared to Jalen Hurts' ability to fit into it and utilize it. I'm wondering if it's going to be really bad because the offense can't get points and can't take advantage of the defense limiting their opponents and holding their opponents in line or in reason. Let's say in reason, where they give up points, but they don't give up lots of points. And yet the offense doesn't have the ability to win those low scoring games that the defense has provided. I don't know if that sounds fair, but that's what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, like I always say, this is the NFL. You can worry about a lot of things. You can talk yourself into a lot of things because every team on your schedule has really good players. So if you really want to talk yourself into something, from a macro standpoint, the Eagles have a really good team. They're going to be fine. The offense is going to be fine. There, in my opinion, there's too much focus on Jalen Hurts, and I get it. He's the quarterback. He's the most important player on the field. If the people should be focused on the offensive line. If the offensive line is healthy, they're going to be fine. They're going to have a top 5 offensive line. They're going to be fine. Now, if Drew Kendall's got to play center, if Michael Jordan's got to play guard, if Fred Johnson's got to play tackle, they're not going to be fine. To me, the starting 5 from left to right: Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson. If those guys are out there, the Eagles are going to be good. But the depth is weaker than it has been. The top interior backup right now is Drew Kendall. The top tackle backup is Fred Johnson. Markel Bell's probably not ready. As I said, they had to bring in Michael Jordan because they were trying people at guard. They didn't even like it in the spring when the pads aren't on. So what are they going to look at like when the pads are on?
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, you have a lot of injury concerns with Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Lane as well. But, his foot injury is a little bit different because that's healed. He should be fine, although he's aging. And guys like that tend to get hurt more. All I can tell you, and I think was the most positive part of the offense for the spring, is Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson were both out there, both preparing, both happy and smiling. And I say that because they were miserable last year. They were miserable because of all the pain they were fighting through to play each and every week. So, doesn't guarantee that they're not going to get hurt again, but they're a heck of a lot better this year in the spring than they were last year. So that to me is the most positive part of the spring for the offense, which didn't look great. But it's more of a 7-on-7 type of environment. It's more of a passing camp in the offseason. You don't put the pads on. You don't get the physicality. That's the strength of the Eagles' offense, the physicality, the offensive line. That's the strength of their offense. It always has been in this era. It will continue to be. What is not the strength of their offense is playing 7-on-7 and just chucking the ball all over the place. Especially now they don't have A.J. Brown. So, that's part of the reason it didn't look great. When those guys get the pads on, it's a whole different ball game. Because, people aren't getting through. They're not affecting the quarterback. When those guys are healthy, they're dominating in the run game.
A lot more running the football.
Oh, yeah.
There's an
This is a run-first team. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah. I think as a lineman, the preference is to run the ball versus protect in a passing situation.
Yeah, they all say that because, they're hitting people instead of getting, playing defense, getting hit. Yeah, they all love to run block. And yeah, that's what I think this whole offensive change and what people have missed, and Nick talked about this in the spring, is about fixing first down, which is more about fixing the run game than it is the pass. Like I think everybody's hyper focused on the passing game and think it's about fixing the passing game. I think it's about more of fixing the running game. And Nick actually gave, I called it a little Easter egg. When he talked to us before the combine, and he said, basically that's why they changed last year in season to this more of the wide zone stretch format, because they think that is a better way to handle all the junk they were getting in the passing game. And by that he was, saying they won the Super Bowl. They were getting a lot of unscouted looks. And a lot of those unscouted looks came on first down. And I remember talking to Kevin Patullo about this, and, guys would show things on film and you say, all right, they're going to do this. And they show up and they're playing the Super Bowl champions and they're doing something completely different because they want to give their best shot. to the Super Bowl champions. Now, you still have to succeed with unscouted looks, and too often they didn't. But I think a lot of people missed that when Nick was talking in the spring, before the spring, before the combine it was. And he mentioned, how much this is about the running game. And I think that has been something that is a lot of people have missed.
Is the change in the O-line coach going to have any impact, or you don't? I mean, how do you make Lane Johnson better? How do you coach a guy like Lane or Mailata or any of these guys on the starting offensive line, which is going to be a great offensive line? I remember on one of the post-game shows way back when it was in debate, and I've said this a few times, maybe not on the air, but I've said it to Xander and stuff. I always remember Seth Joyner saying that a player will get motivated by a coach who can make them better, who can teach them something that will make them better. Otherwise, and I'm paraphrasing what the example of what Seth used, but the point is, if the coach can make you better, and I'm a star player, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to do what you say because you're going to make me better. I'm going to perform better. In this particular case, do you even coach the offense? I mean, like what do you do with the starting offensive line? Are you even coaching them? I mean, other than these guys are so good, they've been around so long, they all have the Stoutland influence. So what does he work on with them, or does he not? Is his time better spent trying to bring the depth pieces along, because that's where the issue's going to surface should somebody go down?
Well, I do think, Chris Cooper's got the, he's inherited some pretty good finished products. And so for him, the development of the younger players is the more important things. The Drew Kendalls, maybe it's Miles Hinton, maybe it's Cameron Williams, maybe it's Willie Lampkin, maybe it's Markel Bell. Those are the players. He's not getting a lot of credit for Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. But they're very excited about the change, those two players specifically. In Lane even more so, because they've been put on an island for years, and this offense will help them more. There's a lot of traditional play action in theory. There's a lot of bootlegs. There's a lot of chipping to make sure those bootlegs can develop properly. And for the first time in a long time, Lane and Jordan are going to get some help, which they're excited about. But yeah, those guys I don't worry about. They're finished products. It's the younger guys, because they're very unproven behind the starting five. And even Tyler Steen played well last year, which I think a lot of people don't realize. So, I know there's this sentiment because he's a franchise legend that Jeff Stoutland is losing. Jeff Stoutland is going to be a crisis type situation. I don't think it is, simply because Chris Cooper's not the offensive line coach that Jeff Stoutland is. I'm not trying to say that, but Jeff didn't want to run this style of offense. And if he doesn't want to run this style of offense, he's got to go because that's what they're doing. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, but why? Why wouldn't he want to? What does he care? What did Jeff Stoughton care? What the offense is? He's
had a lot of success. When you have this success of Jeff Stoughton, and make no mistake, I'll say the same thing.
I'm not knocking Jeff Stoughton. I'm just trying to understand what he cares about. He's already an accomplished. He already gets all the credit for this being the best offensive line in football. He already gets all the credit for turning Jordan Mailata into the player that he is today. So Stoughton was never in a position where he didn't receive the accolades or the credit. He gets it all. He gets it all for the starting five this year. This is a Jeff Stoughton. This is a Stoutland group. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to understand the dynamic of what Cooper now needs to do. And I just keep coming back to the point in my mind, right or wrong, that Cooper's got to work on the replacements. Should injury creep into the starting five, and if they're weak on replacements, and because, as you said many times, you cannot legislate injury, one bad injury on the offensive line could take a shit on the entire season.
Perhaps. Yeah, but if he was here, I think it would still take a shit on the entire season because players are more important than coaches. Anybody who watches this show, listens to this show, I'm not coming off that. I mean, players are more important than coaches. And Lane Johnson's a Hall of Fame player. Jordan Mailata is on a Hall of Fame trajectory as a player. Landon Dickerson's a 3-time Pro Bowl player. Cam Jurgens, 2-time Pro Bowl player. They have good players in the starting group. And the backups, it's a bunch of 4th and 5th and 6th round picks. Not the same from a talent perspective. So, would they be a little bit better with Jeff Stoughton? Probably from a developmental aspect. But again, I'm talking about the younger players. But again, because Chris Cooper hasn't proven that, and few have, but they're not playing the style that Jeff Stoughton teaches anymore. So, it becomes, basically, if you want to boil it down, Jeff Stoughton based his whole foundational teaching process on an offensive line coach by the name of Jim McNally. Power gap philosophy, pin and pull, kick slide, all the things you've seen. It's what Jim McNally taught and where Jeff learned, and now they're doing more of the Alex Gibbs, which is the Shanahan, Terrell Davis. If you remember the Broncos, the wide zone, the old thing with the old Mike Shanahan offenses, the joke was anybody could run for 1,000 yards in Denver. And that was Alex Gibbs, and it's a different style. It's based on more athleticism. It's based on stretching the defense. It's based on athleticism. So they're teaching a different style because they believe they have to. Now you can argue they shouldn't, and I would probably agree with that, but they are. So that's why Chris Cooper's here. That's why Ryan Mahaffey's here, the run game coordinator, because they have expertise in that style. That's why they're here. Now, I wouldn't have changed, but they did. I think the struggles last year had more to do with the injuries than the scheme. They evidently think differently. But if you're just telling me, all right, who do you want to run this scheme? Well, I would rather have Chris Cooper and Ryan Mahaffey than Jeff Stoutland. But if you let me do what I wanted to do, I'd rather have Jeff Stoutland, if that makes sense. But, you know, he was offered they wanted to keep him on as just the offensive line coach and give him the opportunity to teach a different style. And he didn't want to do it.
John, is it possible that, and excuse me if this is a question of ignorance, is it possible that the new scheme, the new system, the implementation of this offense neuters the starting five, puts them in a position where they're not as great as what they are before they run play number one of the new scheme? Is that remotely possible?
No, because players are more important than coaches. Lane Johnson's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer in any scheme.
Oh, I'm not knocking. Yeah, I'm saying the scheme that they're running, the plays that are coming in now are different from what the starting five is used to. It's different blocking. It's different. Everything's different. It's a brand new scheme. So all of a sudden, the guys who are Hall of Famers who have been under a certain system are now talent and everything else will allow them to adjust and adapt. I'm just wondering if they become less effective because of the implementation of the new scheme, the new offensive scheme.
Well, they got better last year when they switched. Now it's a very small sample size, and they shifted without the expertise that they have now. But it got slightly better, not dramatically better. But they really, really struggled early under the old scheme in the running game. And then it got progressively better in the second half when they switched. So now, I mean, great players are great players.
Yeah,
and that's my point. And they're, will there be, maybe a couple mistakes early? Sure. But they'll figure it out very quickly. And those specific 5 players, I don't worry about at all, other than health.
Mm-hmm.
I don't worry about it at all. Now, the guys behind them, nothing proven, nothing, with the exception of Fred Johnson a little bit, and he's been okay. But you see the downgrade when Fred's out there. And Lane is not, or Jordan is not. It's a significant downgrade. They had to bring in Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, but the football player, because, everybody they have at guard, Drew Kendall, 1 start, week 18, meaningless environment. Miles Hinton, no starts. Willie Lampkin, 0 starts. Micah Morris is a rookie, 0 starts. Literally 1 start for the backup interior group until they brought in Michael Jordan, who's a veteran. But, not a great veteran. So they're very thin on the offensive line. Great starting 5, extremely thin behind them. where everybody's unproven. And that's where I think you miss Jeff Stoutland the most, because Jeff Stoutland's been a great developmental coach with younger players. And now you don't have that. But that starting five is a finished product.
What is Fred Johnson's? What's the weakest part of his game, John? Pass blocking or running the football?
I would say, well, he's a backup player. He's below average, number one. So he's below average in both phases. I would say he's a better pass protector than run blocker, but a lot of that has to do with the group as a whole is better at pass protection than run blocking. Even last year when people thought they stunk, they still graded out very well in pass protection. So, I mean, he's just, I think people have unrealistic expectations of backup players. He's a backup player.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if Lane Johnson has an injury and goes down, and Fred Johnson obviously is his replacement, and the best offensive line in football, or the top three or the top five, whatever you want to categorize them to be, is now all of a sudden the best four plus Fred Johnson, and the offense is still under the new scheme running the ball more than throwing the ball and trying to get Saquon more yardage than he did a year ago. What is the end result of that if Fred Johnson is your best of the backups for the offensive line? There's a lot riding on the fact, and again, I guess that's a good thing. There's a lot riding on the fact of, the starting five needs a lot of load management, dude. I'm not sure I'm not sure they should ever practice after the game.
Well, yeah, there's no load management on game day.
Put them on the ice until the game.
Oh, you will. If anybody has a hangnail in training camp, they're not going to practice. I guarantee you. But I mean, you've seen a ton of Fred Johnson over the past couple seasons.
Yeah,
he played more snaps than Lane did last year.
And what was the narrative on his play? His narrative was what? He did okay. He filled in okay.
He's okay. He's a good backup player. But when you compare him to Lane Johnson, it's a significant downgrade. People have already seen it.
Yeah.